over here at the milling machine, we're set up for the extractor cuts. Gonna get these extractors cut in there. The flat's already done, so that's kind of what we reference these cuts off of, if you're curious. But pretty simple setup. Angle plate, barrel set up at the angle for the cuts, and then we're just gonna run straight across until we get down to depth and flip her over to the other side. Alright, there you go. All the breech work is done on this custom barrel. See, we've accurately recreated all the breech cuts on this new Krieger Barrel blank that we have machined threads for our CZ457. So here's the original factory barrel on the right here, and there is the Krieger threaded barrel. No more nasty grub screw cuts. We are going to thread it into the receiver like a proper rifle and torque it down. So yeah, all the breech work is now complete. I did test fire it last night before I did any of the extractor work. So I just test fired it without the extractors on, and just to make sure the chamber was okay. So yep, everything measured within spec. So we've got a nice tight match grade chamber for Eley ammunition, head spaced at 0.41 like it's supposed to be, and with the enough stick out for plenty of engagement in the rifling. So yeah, we'll get this torqued onto the receiver one last time and get this guy ready for crowning. So we're going to cut an inch off of that barrel, make it a 24-inch barrel, and give it a crown. All right, we're back at the lathe, and it is muzzle work day, muzzle work time for this Czeska Zbrojovka CZ457 premium custom 22 rimfire competition rifle. So all barrel manufacturers, well, most, there are a few exceptions, but most barrel manufacturers advise cutting off at least an inch from the muzzle and the breech end. Like I mentioned earlier a few days ago, when we're doing the breech on a centerfire rifle with a real long cartridge, we're boring out all that material anyway, so we don't have to cut off an inch per se because the bore is already being bored out. On the muzzle end, you're not actually affecting the rifling, the bore of the barrel. All you're doing typically is crowning or threading the muzzle end. Now, in our case, this is a 22 rimfire and a highly accurate precision rig. So we're not going to put threads on this. It's certainly not needed. You don't need to mitigate recoil on a big, heavy 22 rimfire. I mean, you can't feel the recoil as it is in this heavy, really heavy rig. And there's really no benefit to it. Very worst case scenario, you would need to install what's called a tuner. I almost never do that. I actually have never done that unless the client requests it in the beginning. I'll always highly advise against it, but if they insist on it or really want it, that's fine, it's their rig. But I warn them, you know, it can affect the bore. I don't want to get into that too much but when, in a nutshell, when you're removing all this steel to thread something, you'll stress relieve the material, and oftentimes the bore will open up just a little bit. And this is the last thing the bullet sees, so if the bullet comes down and doesn't have proper engagement in the rifling and it gets all loose, it can cause flyers and all kinds of accuracy issues, consistency issues, causing accuracy issues. So we just don't mess with that. As a rule, as a general rule of thumb, on a 22 rimfire, we're only going to put a crown on here. So first thing to do is we still have to chop off an inch of this thing. So I've got my parting tool set up, and we're just going to cut right through this guy, part it off, give us a nice fresh bore, and then crown it. All right, that's parted off. As you can see, it's a hot meatball. This is not going to go to waste. We're going to use this for something special for our customer. So we'll show you that a little later, but we're going to save this little cut-off portion and yeah, do something with that later. All right, guys and gals, we are back. I have faced off the cut-off portion clean just to have something nice to get my indicator probe in there. Just took off enough to make it flat, right? So by far, definitely not the finished thing, but here's what we're gonna get into here now. So earlier, if you watched the earlier videos on the breech work, you saw that we indicated the breech end in two places to align the bore perfectly straight, because every barrel has a little curvature to the bore, just a little bit of a rainbow. We're talking tiny, tiny little amount, but there still exists somewhat of a curve or a rainbow. So if I were to center just one point of this barrel, that would mean the bullet may encounter some of that curvature at the very end. So, I mean, who cares what's going on in the middle or 3/4 of the way through? We want to make sure the exit of this bullet is perfectly concentric, as perfect as we can get it, meaning it's not going to be thrown off one way or the other, causing flyers, consistency issues, right? So what I do here in my shop with each and every rifle build, premium level service, is we're going to be indicating this in two places. So that's why we've got our extra long probe on our 1/10,000th of an inch indicator. I'm not going to repeat myself with the whole thing, so go back and watch the other video if you want to get into the nitty-gritty details of everything. But I do want to show that this barrel is now aligned 100% perfectly straight. So we're looking at the needle here on the dial, and we want to see that this thing, we're paying attention to when it kicks down, because that means the probe's going down into the rifling, into the grooves of the rifling. So it's a little bit more of a consistent way to watch this needle. You can use the land, but in my experience, the grooves are a little bit more repetitive, at least. So we want to make sure this drops down in the same spot each time, like it's doing here. So I'm not going to bore you with centering it. I've already gone through that tedious process, but this is just showing you it is now completely running absolutely true to within 1/10,000th of an inch. Granted, maybe a little more because of the extra long probe that throws the resolution off just a little bit, but this is the only way to do it, right? So we are as straight and true as we can get, as we can be. Life is good here. We are ready to cut this crown. So one more time, there it is. And then we're going to go 1.5 inches in, and we're still running absolutely true. All right, guys, we got you zoomed in nice and close. This is the best angle I can do for you. It's really hard to see since my cutting tool has to be so close for rigidity and everything else like that. But I believe this is a pretty good view for the simple procedure of cutting an accuracy crown into this barrel. What is an accuracy crown? Well, we're gonna have an 11-degree sort of cone, so to speak, on this thing. You'll see it at the end. I'll give you some close-ups and things like that. You know, there's arguments. It's argued that a crown doesn't matter as long as it's flat, square, and concentric. Well, that's what's certainly going to be achieved here. I just like 11-degree crowns because they look cool. I mean, it just boils down to that. Most of the time, if I'm threading a barrel for a suppressor, I'm going to put a flat crown on it because it doesn't matter. Nobody ever sees it, but I do recut that just enough to make sure it's square, flat, and concentric. In this case, there's no threads. There's nothing going to be covering up. This is going to be exposed. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of the crown, in a way, it's a crown of the barrel. So, I mean, people see it, they're going to be like, oh, wow, either it's done poorly, not at all, or really well. So if it's done really well, it's just a reflection of the gunsmith or the rifle maker, the precision custom rifle maker that made the rifle, right? So just a nice little finishing touch to the very end of the barrel, giving the bullet a nice exit on its way to its final destination, if you will. Okay, so we're going to zoom you right on in here, get you nice and close, and we're going to cut this crown. It won't take long. We're just going to cut it until there's a sufficient 11-degree cone, and there's a small flat on the end. Just again, my own little signature there at the end for the crown. And here we go. Get a little cutting oil in on this action. Yeah, look at that nice chip. One nice, long, continuous chip. We're gonna keep going keep going a little more on this guy. It sort of recesses the muzzle exit. Kind of protects it, offers a little bit of protection. It's not as protective as, say, a recessed crown or something like that, but my customers certainly aren't abusing these rifles, right? They're transported in heavy cases and treated with, at least I hope they're treated with care. It's not like a hunting rig where you throw it in the back of your pickup and shoot a deer once a year with it. These are precision instruments. Only the best. Only the best of the best. Yeah, continuous chip. You can't see me, but I am feeding this by hand. Okay, I'm going to remove these chips and give it a very final finishing pass here. And for that, we're going to use some oil. Nice layer of cutting oil. And very fine, continuous finishing pass on this crown all the way out. Premium target crown for a premium customer. And then I like to always check it with a Q-tip. We certainly do not want any burrs here at the end, especially at 22. That's way soft lead. We don't want that. It's snagging or encountering any interference at the very end of the muzzle. And in this case, there is no burr at all. It's very smooth. You can actually feel this. I like to feel, make sure there's no snagging or any kind of imperfection. Arguably, this is the most important part of the barrel. I mean, obviously the bore is important, the chamber is important, uniformness in the bore and the rifling. But yeah, nothing there. That's feeling perfect. Crown's done. This barrel work is essentially done, at least for the machining portions of it. So we saw the blank, as it were, from the factory. We saw preparing the barrel. Unfortunately, I didn't get bore scoping on there, but we did bore scope this. Obviously, we always put our barrels through an intensive evaluation process before we even start working on them. So that's been done. Obviously, the receiver's been trued up and then measured for perfect headspace to our Eley ammunition. You've seen the breech work, the chamber being cut, and then the features of the breech, as in the threads and the thread tenon itself, establishing that exact perfect length for our headspace. And then the extractor cuts and the little shelf for the feed ramp / ejector assembly kind of thing that goes into the receiver. And then finally the muzzle work. So that wraps that all up. We'll get this laser engraved and prepared for some custom Cerakote work. This is the Vision chassis for the CZ457. It is made by a company called Vision. They are out of a small city called Sadness in the country of Norway. Basically what we got here is a chassis specifically made for the CZ457. And right here on the table I have a specimen that I've been working on. But one nice thing about the Vision is that it has accommodations for the largest barrels. That being 1 1/4 inch barrel that we're using here. So it fits very, very nicely in this barrel channel. But as you can see here, it fits perfectly well and has a little bit of a free float. We are going to bed this chassis as we do with our premium level service. So this will all be bedded. We're going to be basically bedding it front and rear action screw, and then a nice little cradle of bedding in here. Just because this barrel is so heavy, I want a little support here. That should improve consistency and accuracy, since the barrel's not, it'll be free floated all the way out, but here at the heaviest portion it'll have a nice little cushion, little cradle. There's not a whole lot of recoil, if any. Actually, this, you probably won't even know it went off unless you hear the bang. But anyway, we're going to bed this guy, but this is not bedded yet. But yes, we will be bedding it like we do with centerfire rifles all the way back. It's got a very nice mag well here for the CZ457 magazines. So, we'll get some shots of this all together and everything like that, but very easy to get in there, hit the mag release and retrieve your magazine. So very nice design there. There's plenty of clearance, plenty of room in there, especially with the extended magazine release that all of our rifles feature. We use all the premium components on our builds, so when you buy the rifle, it will be fully upgraded. There really isn't much else you need to do other than buy whatever magazines you want. One thing I forgot to mention was right here. This is a Gen 1 specific thing, but the CZs have, this is kind of where their recoil lug is. So the bottom of the receiver here has a very small kind of notch. Very similar to a Tikka, except the Tikka would obviously be up front. But in the CZ's case, it's right here. And that fits very, very nicely And what they've done is simply just drilled and tapped 2 holes and used 2 cap head kind of screws there. It is number 2 metric Allen hex head. But essentially, yeah, it's just 2 little screws in there. I know the Gen 2 now features an actual boss that's machined into the aluminum. That is a perfect fit. But you can see there, it's just a drill and tab hole with a screw that I just dropped. With 2 of these, kind of just typical metric hex head Allen style screws. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be bedding this, so this area will be filled in, essentially, with bedding. So we are going to essentially create our own custom recoil lug here with Acroglass bedding compound, marine tex, or whatever the customer desires to use. So that's kind of an interesting feature. Like I said, this is discontinued here, this one. So the Gen 2 has what is essentially a machined in boss there. A little bit nicer. Our rifles here at Accurate Rifles and Restorations, they can come with this. This is the absolute top of the line premium. We also work with MDT and other chassis for a little bit more affordability. It just depends on what our customer wants. We build ours to order as well, so just get in touch, let us know what you want to use in your build. Just like the chassis, our rifles are not cheap, but they are extremely well made and handmade by human beings every step of the way. All right, guys and gals, we got the Vision Pro chassis, at least the midsection. It's fully cured. Took out the barreled action, and just check out that bedding job. Turned out beautiful. Now we got a perfect 1-to-1 union between the barreled action and the chassis here. So back here, you can see we've got a perfect solid recoil lug now that has flowed in and perfectly transferred from the bottom of the receiver to the chassis. If you recall, there's just 2 little screws in there before, but now we've got a exact 1-to-1 fit on the back there. Action screw, so we got a little cradle for the rear of the action to sit, just like a bolt action center fire. And then up front here, same thing. Got the transfer from the taper of that barrel to the bottom of the receiver. There's the action screw hole that's been relieved, so we cut out any bedding that's in there because we don't want to double thread or anything. And we've got a very nice pad here for the barrel here. There's a little bit of a raised section there. That's the screw. So the 2 screws that hold the fore end on, I had those screws in place so that the bedding wouldn't flow into the threads. And when I unscrewed it, it just pulled that down a little bit. No big deal, whatever. That massive 1.25" barrel will smush that back down just fine. But anyway, instead of the barrel floating loose, now we got a support for it, basically. So yeah, we are heading towards the finish line on this one. You probably hear in the back, my wife Crystal is now preparing the barrel for Cerakote. We're going to coat that, I think it was midnight bronze or burnt smoke bronze, something like that. I'll let you know what the color is here soon. But we've got it laser engraved. Got the barrel laser engraved with 22 Eley and the twist rate. The bottom of the receiver, we're going to put the specs for the action, the barrel tenon length and the headspace, 0.041. That'll be engraved for our customer in the future if they ever decide to use a different gunsmith or a pre-fit or something like that. They'll know what their headspace dimension is. And of course, the chassis is now bedded for this exact action, exact barreled action. So after the barrel gets out of Cerakote, it'll be final assembly and some final tests. And then we'll be shipping this off to our customer. We'll be offering these custom CZ457 builds moving forward. So if you're interested in what you're seeing here, obviously you know what to do. Get in touch and we'll send you an estimate, decide on the components you want and all that good stuff.